I'm going to take you to the journey I went through of becoming a network engineer. Currently, I'm working as a network engineer at AMS-IX, but this journey will be how I got there in the early years. So, starting after high school, at this time, it still amazes me that some kids at 17 know what they want to do for the rest of their life. This young buck didn't have a clue. He didn't know what he wanted to do for the next 40, 50 years of his career. So this resulted in me doing all sorts of jobs. I worked at a restaurant, I did some construction work, I even worked at a game store for 2 years, which was amazing. Selling, talking, and playing games for 2 years. That was great. But between all those jobs, I always seemed to return to the customer support of ISPs, and then usually grew to the technical support, helping with email, the home modems, and later IPTV. So when at the end of my 20s, the beers became more expensive and the holidays became more expensive, I needed to do something of a career. At the time I was working at customer support of KPN at the second line, and a colleague of mine introduced me to a CCNA study book, the beginner certificate for most network engineers. And when I started studying and I used GNS3 and made my first ping work, then I was sold. I knew this was a fun thing to do. It is most of the time. But yeah, this introduced me to the world of networking. This got me a promotion to the service desk NOC of KPN there. While I wasn't doing the full hands-on work in the networks, I did sit next to the people that did. They helped me out in my studies. I could ask them questions, see what they were doing. Unfortunately, KPN moved to a different location that was a bit too far for me to travel. So this resulted me in finding a different job. So with my CCNA in my pocket and having seen some networking, I thought, well, let's become a junior network engineer. Apparently, having the lack of proper real-life experience did hinder me a bit in the interviews, and this, in the end, ended me up at Kwanza. While I went for the engineering job, they didn't have that job available for me, also compared to my skill level. But they were building a new 24/7 NOC, which they promised would be more technical, and you got a bit of hands-on experience in that job. And they delivered on that. It was my first introduction to an IXP, as they do the 24/7 first-line support for AMS-IX. It introduced me to the first optical network with the customer SurfNet that they have. And they have their own individual customers, which all networks always have their own thing and are different. It was my first time working in shifts, which is a bit of getting used to if you haven't done it. I did my first firmware upgrade, which was scary because waiting 10 minutes for a device to come back, the first time is always scary. And I educated some people in the team and saw them grow to in the job that I did. So after 3 years, I got the opportunity to become an engineer, a network engineer at Kwanza. So when I got to the promotion, I got my first experience with real hands-on. And from the study books and everything you learn in the books, it's different when you do it in real life. My study guides were 4 routers, 4 switches. You knew what you were doing. There was no clutter in it. And all of a sudden you have dark fibers, you have firewalls, you have servers. Things you didn't touch. So after a year, I kind of struggled. It was hard. I didn't feel like I learned as much as I should. I grow as much as I should. So this made me decide to leave Kwanza and go to a different company that was smaller, that was just doing routing and switching with a little bit of firewalls in it. At the time, it felt like taking a step back. I thought I failed a bit because, I couldn't make it work. But in the end, it seemed to be a sidestep. This really helped me to solidify the basis of the knowledge that I studied for. It was simpler, and I really got a hang of the knowledge that I had, and I could put it in practice. Unfortunately, the company at the time where I worked with, their main business was in retail. And yeah, when the coronavirus hit, this meant that the work was drying up. So unfortunately, I was let go after a year. And yeah, then was the question, where do I go now? Do I return to Quanza now with the knowledge that I have? Or do I go for a new opportunity? And that's when I was hired by AMS-IX. Because I knew them from Quanza, I knew the manager, Kostas. And yeah, after a few good talks, I got hired at AMS-IX. And yeah, I got to say, if you have friends that don't work in IT and you say you work at AMS-IX, it's like, okay, you got a job. But when you talk to your IT friends, it's like, oh my God, you're working at AMS-IX? Really? You can really mess some things up. It's like, yeah, you can. So yeah, getting the first year, getting into the operations, it's a lot of reading, it's going over the wiki. It really is a different kind of network than yeah, in any of the study books that I've read, but very challenging. And yeah, more and more I got into the day-to-day operations, which, yeah, you run into new things. I could give an entire presentation on the day-to-day at an IXP. But for now, I will highlight some of the projects I've been doing. Yeah, don't look at the left picture. It was my first time cabling, going remote. This was in Chicago. Here I replaced our DCI solution with our partner Smart Optics. Yeah, ever since my field engineers have educated me properly on how to cable and make it look nice instead of the picture at the left. Having worked at Quanza and they are doing our 24/7 support, I'm able to, yeah, of course, put that knowledge back to Quanza. Here I was educating a new group of people that were hired at Quanza for doing our first line support. So yeah, this once again shows how small the world of IT usually is. And while I was not fully a part of the first migration, I was present as I was on call that day. And I did it for the experience, definitely not for the free pizza that was offered. But yeah, you see quite a few very happy engineers here when we finished our first Juniper migration last year, which was amazing to do. And of course, then I did my own Juniper migration, which was, by Tim, who wrote a blog post of it, dubbed the Monster Project. Here we used to operate Sarah and Nikev as one big supersite location. And for the migration of Juniper, we decided to split those locations up again and make them their own location. So yeah, you can see this as a double migration in the same time that we usually do one. I could also do an entire presentation on this project, but I highly recommend go read the blog post posted there. Written by my colleague Tim, which will go a bit more in depth in how this monster project came to be and how we finished it. Then one of the fun parts of working at AMS-IX is that you get to attend events like NLNOG, but also abroad. You go to the Euro-IXs, the NANOGs, which really is fun to do. You get to interact with the customers, partners, and colleagues working in the same environment. So with all these projects and milestones, is it also roses and sunshine? Well, no, not always. My first big outage was in Chicago, which prompted the replacement of our DCI solution. And yeah, this was my first 24-hour shift. It was in Chicago, remote time, on a network we weren't fully aware of. And yeah, this resulted in a 24-hour shift, getting partners to work, getting the remote hands to work. And yeah, I did it in conjunction with my layer 3 at the time, who's here as well, Tiago. And I got to say, working 24 hours is very different than gaming for 24 hours. Your brain really gets mushed up, and thinking clear, you really need a second pair of eyes, and preferably a third. One of the other fun nights that I had with another colleague of mine, Stavro, is when a line card failed. That was during the night. We went to the office, got a new line card, went to the data center. We got the wrong line card. As you can see, they kind of look alike. So we went back to the office, got the line card, made sure we had the right one, went to the DC, was the wrong one again. So this resulted us in driving between data center and the office 2 times at night, finishing at 7 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, that was a really fun night. And of course, when you start working at an IXP, when you hear about an IXP, they warn you about loops. Loops are the death of our platform. When you start, you get warned about it, you get examples, you know it, you try to prevent it. Unfortunately, it happened to me. In the early morning, I was asked to test the customer port. We placed the loop on the port. I removed all the config. I had a colleague controlling that, I moved all the config, but we didn't remove the port from the VLAN. So, causing a loop, we found out within 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, it was mitigated. And what is the impact of a 30-second loop on our platform? Well, as you can see, well over 1.5 terabyte of traffic lost within 30 seconds. It really is the death of our network, causing a loop on our platform. So after all this, once again, am I now a... Well, they made a party of it. Am I now a network engineer? Talking to colleagues and peers alike, it's, when you work hard, you make mistakes, you own your mistakes, and you learn from them, then yes, you're on the road to become a network engineer. So this is my story of how I got here.
Well, thank you, Leroy. That was a very recognizable story from parts like making loops, having wrong line cards, but also the part about taking a step back to think about what it is that you actually want. And of course, the drinking beer part.
Of course, it's needed.
If there is something that people would need to take away from your presentation, like people who may think, am I on the right path? Is my career going well? What is the thing that you would advise?
Make use of the colleagues that you have if you're in the job. If you're not yet in the job but aspiring to, do the hands-on as quickly as possible. I really thought at Kwanzaa, after 3 years, I got my CCNP route and I really knew my stuff, and then you get into the dirt and it's like, you almost know nothing. It's so different when you're doing it real life, when you actually log into the devices instead of reading it and practicing it. And and make use of your peers and your colleagues. Ask questions. Make sure for your senior that you don't ask the same question twice. Write it down, learn from it, and practice it. Use your environment. Use your environment.
I'm happy I asked that question. I see there is another question over there for Leroy. No? Go ahead.
Rob from LONAP now, another internet exchange, which I accidentally ended up working for. This sounds all very familiar because, I applied to work for this thing called Links about 23 years ago. And it's exactly the same, what you've just said now, as what happened when I started working. I think, well, we didn't particularly have a plan for my career. I didn't know how this was going to work. A lot of people, and AMS-IX, we were exchanging stories back then with AMS-IX, these foundry switches, these loops. We could tell you all about that and all the horror stories, and it's great that we can do that, and we love to share the horror stories, but there's no particular plan. I was thinking, will I ever get good at this? Will I ever stop breaking stuff? Probably not. No. But we do, and I love this community because it's a very open thing. We love to get up and share the quite embarrassing stories about how we broke it and how you don't want to do it. And I don't think there's very many other industries where people will get up and openly say, oops, oops, in front of everybody else. But we do, we love it, and we learn from it, and it's brilliant. We do need to get more people into this industry as a career, and it's a thing you can do. It works. I'm not getting any younger, and I'm seeing the same faces in this room as I was seeing back, in 20-something years ago. So, what would you suggest to get more young people, new people into it?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's get people in school to attend these kind of events. Get them to a Euro IX, make some places for that. Get them to the NOCs, the NLNOGs, the different NOCs in over the world. Get them to the events, get them talking, get them in contact with the engineers doing the work. And telling the horror stories was also the fun sides. When you finish a migration, it feels awesome. When you solve an issue that you've been working on for 2 hours at 2 o'clock at night, it feels so good when you solve it and you did it yourself. So get them involved, get them in the community. One of the things that I learned at AMS-IX, like I said, the events are amazing to go to, is the community is awesome. But you don't get in the community if you're not in the space. So yeah, make space for high schoolers, for MBO, HBO, university. Make 10 tickets, invite them, see if there's interest, and expand on that, and see how that can grow. That would be my thing.
Okay, one short question, Rinse.
Oh, I will make it short. It was a very good story, very recognizable. Just a simple question. Do you have any dreams left? Now you're working at AMS-IX. Maybe that's the top of it, or is there still something?
I have honestly asked myself that question because 10 years ago when I did my CCNA, my goal was to get my P certificate from Cisco, because routing and switching P is really high level still. Accomplished that. Second goal was get into a renowned company and do fun stuff. I've done that. Now it's expanding on it. So going to more events. We at AMS-IX are now spreading internationally. Getting involved with up-and-coming regions like Africa and Asia. That currently is my goal I've set. To bring this community more broader, and thankfully AMS-IX provides the opportunity to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you again, Leroy.
Yes.